welcome to PuckHeads Insider Report, Season 1, Episode 17. If you like our show, please hit like, please hit subscribe. If you have any questions on your favorite team, please send them off to us at puckheadsinsider@gmail.com on our Facebook page, PuckHeads Insider Report. Today's show is brought to you by the Florida Grow House. Have you ever thought of your own greenhouse? Here's your chance to get one. Have your own healthy, organic, fresh, and delicious fruits and vegetables. It's fun, relaxing, and it's money-saving food in your own backyard. Just go to floridagrowhouse.com or call 772-249-2095. Mention you heard this ad on Puckhead's Insider Report. Get yourself a $750 discount. My name is Ed Combs here in South Florida. I'm co-host Peter South. He's in Windsor, Ontario. Today we are going to follow up on our last show with the Buffalo Sabres and what's going on in Buffalo. A follow-up we need to touch on first, Peter, is with the New York Rangers. D'Angelo is still sitting at home in New York. They've not traded him. They may be satisfied sitting him until the season comes to an end or until the right deal comes along. There was rumors they were going to eat half his salary. That has all been debunked. They are not. He was fourth in scoring last season. There's a problem in New York with him. There was a problem elsewhere with him. Are they going to let him sit and see if Seattle snags him up in the expansion draft, or do they wait on a trade?
Well, first off, hi, Ed. Great to hear you and talk to you. And I think it's just a mess in New York with that situation. They definitely need him on the ice, but they stuck their foot in their mouths by saying that he'll never wear a Ranger sweater again. There's just some things you don't...
Injury problems.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's bound to happen in the short season where they're compressing all the games and the teams are playing, 3 and 4 nights and stuff like that. It's going to happen. And like I said, they backed themselves into a corner. They didn't handle it internally. They didn't handle it the way they should have. And now they got a high-end player sitting there. Anybody who wants him is looking at it. They'll take him on a fire sale situation because it's hurting the Rangers more having him sit there. So why pay market value for something that's going to help the Rangers?
Well, that's what makes no sense to me is they put him up on waivers and nobody wanted him for free. Now you're expecting a trade. I know you said that they could have pulled it back or done whatever they wanted, but okay, somebody wanted him. Trade or no trade, he was on waivers. Take the chance and snatch him and see what the Rangers do. They were so fed up with him, they were willing to let him go for free as long as you paid his full salary. If somebody was willing to do that, you don't think they'd have let him go?
Well, look at the other end of it, Ed. You're the Detroit Red Wings, and you decide to snag him up. You're Steve Yzerman, and then the Rangers, pull him back because it's not irrevocable waivers. What does that resonate through the rest of your lineup? Down through your current defenseman, down through your defenseman in your minors?
Sending a message, yeah.
Exactly. So that's why you don't do it. You want to do all these things quietly behind closed doors so that you're not disrupting your own team chemistry.
I got you. So before we jump into Buffalo real quick, what is more likely, a trade or Seattle?
That's a tough one, but I do see a trade as we get down closer to the trade deadline when the teams start sorting themselves out. I wouldn't, as crazy as it sounds, I wouldn't count the Boston Bruins out of the mix on that. I think they're a team, or the Pittsburgh Penguins. Both of those teams would like a player of his caliber. And I think they'd be willing to part with a decent player themselves, especially a forward, because they both have good depth up front.
You see him staying in the same division? New York would do that?
Yeah,
wow, that could come back to bite you in the ass real quick.
Yeah, but you know what? The game's changed a lot. All sports, they don't look at it no more, especially now in the salary cap worlds.
No, I agree with that, but right now, I'm talking about right now. This season, because all of these guys, that's all they're playing each other 8 times.
Yeah, so. Well, that could be why they wait till near the end of the trade deadline day, and so you won't have to see anybody more than once or twice.
Well, let's get back to Buffalo before I get too far off on a tangent with that one, because as you know, I went off on a rant last week regarding the players and coaches and what's going on in Buffalo. Jack Eichel, the rest of the team, is it just time to blow them up and just start from scratch, or is that just too drastic right now?
It is too drastic, Ed. I think they're kind of a couple of years behind the Toronto Maple Leafs in the fact that their biggest pitfall is the back end. And people are saying, well, no. Eichel's not scoring. Skinner's not scoring. Hall's not scoring. Okposo's not scoring. The reason they're not scoring is they have such a young green defense that they're getting hemmed in their end a lot. And when they do get the puck, they're not transitioning it up to those forwards, those talented forwards, so they can start the attack. And
you can't. They've got 2 number 1 draft picks back there.
Yeah, but that's 2 out of 6. And I mean, Ristolanen's been on the shelf. He had a lot of issues with COVID. He's probably gone through it worse than any professional athlete that's had it so far. And he's still not back yet, or if he is, he's just getting back and getting limited ice time.
Let's.
And got to remember, Rasmus Dahlin's 20 years old. Jake McCabe is 27, has been the anchor on that defense, and now he's gone for the rest of the year with a torn ACL. It's just a whole cluster in the back end. They got some guys who don't belong there. I mean, they got guys like Matt Irwin, who's 33, probably looking to hang on to him, maybe to see if Seattle will, grab him up. Brendan Montour, who's more of a stay-at-home type guy. The tell with the Sabres is the fact that they've scored 44 goals so far this season. The tell is 19 of those are on the power play. They are not getting 5-on-5 goals, and that's coming from the forwards not getting the puck.
Jack Eichel was drafted June of 14, I believe. What year was Austin Matthews drafted?
I think it was the year after, year or 2 after.
The same year as Dylan Larkin?
You know what? I can't remember that off the top
that's
of
all
my
right.
head.
That's why I'm comparing the two. You're talking about he doesn't have any help. He doesn't. Let's go through this. Since he was drafted, the Sabres, Jack Eichel, I'm referring to Jack Eichel. Since he was drafted, the Sabres have gone through 3 coaches. Current Wings assistant Dan Bilesma from 2015 to 2017. Phil Housley, 2017 through 2019. Ralph Kruger from 2019 to current. GMs have fared no better in Buffalo. Tim Murray, 2014 to 2017. Jason Botterill from 2017 to 2020. Kevin Adams from 2020 in the current GM. We haven't even discussed the revolving doors of players who have come and gone. Draft picks who have been either a bust in Buffalo, as well as trying to find a fit for Jack Eichel. Nothing seems to work for the Sabres. I mean, are they the Detroit Lions of the NHL? For the love of God, you've got talent on that team that should be scoring regular once they get in that offensive zone. These guys can't pass gas.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, first off, they're not the Detroit Lions, but they are definitely the Buffalo Bills. Like you said, they've got all the talent.
The Bills have been to the Super Bowl 4 times.
And the Sabres have also been to the Stanley Cup final once, actually a couple times in their history, but no luck. You got to go back to when Terry Pacula purchased the Sabres. In place, sitting in the GM seat, was Darcy Regier. He got a long tenure with the Sabres. I mean, he was there from 97 until he was let go in 2013. During that time, he had a Stanley Cup final appearance, won the President's Trophy once, a conference title, 2 division titles, and 8 playoff appearances. Then they let him go and brought Tim Murray in, and that was kind of a mess. No playoff appearances during his tenure with the Sabres. In comes Jason Botterill for a couple of years. No playoff appearances. And now Kevin Adams is there. And the thing with Kevin Adams is they promoted him from within. He's a former number 1 player, draft pick, or, first round draft pick player. Had a good career, nothing stupendous. But they did not really do an exhaustive search for a qualified GM. And if you look at the cap situation, I mean, we're talking about the players and their performances right now. You're looking at they've got a big situation coming up on that team because they're pretty well up against the edge of the cap right now with the contracts they've given to Eichel, Skinner, Hall, Okposo. Those are big money contracts. And you have Rasmus Dahlin. He's an RFA at the end of this year. He's going to get paid. He's going to go from that $925,000 up to the $6-7 million range. You've got Ristolainen is going to be in the same boat. He's ready for a new contract. It's you also have their goaltender, Linus Ullmark, who's carried the team this year, got the wins for them. He's a UFA at the end of the season. So they have a quite a mess they're going to have to deal with just contract-wise. They also have a couple of players who I think personally that they need to move. And up front, I'm talking Taylor Hall, even though he's come out and publicly said he'd like to resign with the Sabres. You know, we know Taylor's been around. He's been to a few different teams. He can be a disruption, to put it politely, in a locker room. I mean, he's got talent coming out of the wazoo, but it's just he's not a full team guy. And,
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that?
Well, put it this way: when you use the word class, he's the ass in the word class.
Taylor Hall.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Speaking of Taylor Hall, is that why there's so much movement with him? I mean, he's made the rounds. Edmonton, Arizona, New Jersey, Buffalo. Why so much travel for such a highly rated player? I mean, is he looking for a stable home? I mean, let's not forget these other guys in here. You got Jeff Skinner, Eric Stahl, Sam Reinhart, the aforementioned defenseman, Rasmus Dahlin, Rasmus Ristolainen. Both highly touted in the draft. If Taylor Hall is what you're saying he is, and you know him, you've coached against him, is that the reason for so much travel? And is that a reason why he can't find a home? Is he that disruptive in a locker room that somebody with that much talent could blow up their own career?
I'm not saying he's not a team player. He's a team player. He just doesn't always buy into the full team concepts. And it shows at times. I mean, it does. I look at him as a very one-dimensional player. He's got all the talent, skill, size, and everything to be a marquee center player, but they got him on the wing. And when you play the wing, you don't have to play a lot of defense, and that's one of the reasons why he's there.
If you're a GM and you're looking for a very talented center, and there's 2 or 3 up for grabs, of the 3, are you even looking at him as a GM to come in, or are you saying to yourself, okay, what I know, he's going to be a disruption in my locker room. I can't have it. We're close to that next step of the playoffs and making a run at some point in the near future? Or is he somebody, I got to have him. He's my go-to at center at number 1, number 2 with who I've got.
Well, you know what? If you're a team like a Boston or a Toronto that has a strong core, that when somebody comes in the door, they're going to make it very clear to him that we're the Bruins, we're the Leafs, this is the way we're playing right now, and we expect you to follow the same way. And when the players come out with that, then, you know, he's going to be a guy who he'll fall in place. But when he comes in and gets to be one of the leaders, that's where you can run into issues.
Okay, well, we're going to continue on with this. Right now, it's time for our segment of I Bet You Didn't Know. Today's I Bet You Didn't Know is a good one, Peter. For you Sabre fans, who is the first Sabres goaltender with a 40-win season? Is it A, Don Edwards? Is it B, Ryan Miller? Is it C, Dominic Hasek? Or is it D, Jerry Desjardins? I bet you didn't know. First Buffalo Sabre goaltender with 40 wins in a season. A, Don Edwards. B, Ryan Miller. C, Dominic Hasek. Or D, Jerry Desjardins. We are going to get you that answer in just a few minutes. Please stick around. You may already know it. Peter, we've talked about a few of the guys on this team. A lot of them, if not all of them, have talent to spare. What isn't working? You've been a GM. You've been a head coach. You've been involved with pro hockey. Tell me what it is that is missing. What do you see that they need to fix? I mean, I was half kidding about blowing them up, but is that something that needs to be considered? Is Jack Eichel going to want out of Buffalo, or is Jack the issue? Why is it they can't find someone not only to mesh with his talented forward, but they can't buy a goal, let alone a win? The struggles continue as of this show recorded. They lost to Philly 4-3, and the Devils on Saturday 3-0. What isn't working? I mean, something is broken here. You've been there, Peter. You've been a general manager. You've been a head coach. What's not working?
I think there's a number of things. First off, I think I'm never going to point the finger at the media, but I think it doesn't help. They keep it, every time the Sabres go on a bit of a slump, it's like Jack Eichel wants out. Trade Jack. And I think it's just, if you look at any sport on any team that's not doing as good as they should and they got a star player, they always look at, we got to move the star player out. And it's a good news story on a slow day is how it works. Jeff Skinner. You don't think that Jack Eichel wants out of Buffalo. You think he's there to stay. I don't think he would have signed such a long-term contract if he wasn't there to stay. And that goes for Jeff Skinner, too.
We talked about this last week. Right now, if he wants out, Buffalo has full control. In 18 months, Buffalo has no control. It's a no move. He decides what, where, and when.
Yeah.
Jeff Skinner signs a long contract. He hasn't earned $1 of that contract right now.
Well, not this season. He did when he first got it, and I don't know if he's just got it's reported he's in the coach's doghouse, Kruger's doghouse, but Kruger comes back and says I don't have a doghouse. But you also don't see him on Eichel's line anymore, and Skinner's a proven goal scorer, and Eichel is definitely a setup guy. They basically moved Skinner off to put Taylor Hall in, and it's showing that's not really working either.
Of these three guns, Skinner, Hall, Eichel, not scoring, what do you see them doing at the trade deadline this season? Do you see the doors opening wide, selling the farm? Do you see them trying to help to keep Jack happy? I mean, seriously, at this rate, it will not be long before he says, I'm all set, boys. Bags are packed. I'm ready to go. I am out of here. He can only do this. I mean, he's complained in the media. He's come out and been frustrated. This team they have no traction. None.
Yeah, that's the competitor in him coming out and saying things like that, and youth. I mean, he's a young guy, so I mean, he's still only 24 years old. So, how many times did you stick your own foot in your mouth at 24? I mean, it's happened for many players in this league, and I do believe he wants to be on that team. He wants to be part of the success of them. He knows he's the face of the organization, and he wants them to good. Now, going back to what you said about what are they going to do, they're definitely going to be sellers at the trade deadline. And I could see Taylor Hall being shopped for sure. I mean, he's on a 1-year deal, and he can help somebody. There's no doubt. He can help somebody with his skill in the playoffs. I can see some of the supporting cast up front. Casey Middlestat has drafted real high, also a first-rounder, and he just hasn't panned out at all. I could see them trying to move him. He could be one where a change of scenery could make a big difference. I also could see them trying to move role players, Tobias Reeder and Riley Sheehan. They're not going to give you a lot of points, but they're going to be good defensively. Sheehan is dynamite on the penalty kill, especially with his speed. It almost seems like he's getting one breakaway every penalty kill, but unfortunately he suffers from that being all Swedish, no finish kind of thing. Yeah. And don't be surprised, too, if they look to unload Carter Hutton. I mean, if goaltenders have been going down this year, there's great experience there, and he'd be a great backup. I mean, you could end up seeing him back in St. Louis even.
We're going to get to the goaltending here in just a few minutes. Right now, we are going to bring you the answer to I Bet You Didn't Know. Today's I Bet You Didn't Know. Who is the first Sabres goaltender to win 40 games in a season? A, Don Edwards. B, Ryan Miller. C, Dominic Hasek. Or D, Jerry Desjardins. I got this wrong, and I couldn't believe it, but Peter, give us the correct answer.
Well, I mean, first off, Ed, it's a fantastic question because one thing the Sabres have had through their 50 years plus of being in the NHL is just a massive amount of fantastic goaltenders. Like you said, you've got Ryan Miller, who's a future Hall of Famer. You got Dominic Hasek, who is Jerry Desjardins. Most of our listeners might not remember. They got him in the expansion, and he played in the original 12 league. He was with the LA Kings and Chicago Blackhawks before then, and just a solid netminder, a big netminder too back in that time. And of course, Don Edwards, during the Sabres early runs in the early 70s, he was just fantastic. He was great to watch. I remember going to a lot of Sabre games and watching him. But to get around to it, the winner is Ryan Miller.
Yeah, Ryan Miller, 40 wins in 63 games played, 911 save percentage, and a 2.72 goals against average. That is fantastic. I thought it was Hasek. I really did. We're going to be talking about goaltenders. First, we are going to do our mailbag. Today's question is from Jeff. Said he's in upstate New York. That was all he said. The Sabres goaltending tandem, Linus Ullmark and the aforementioned Carter Hutton, are they good enough? Are they the future of the Sabres? Peter, looking at records, Ullmark is flirting with a 500 record, 919 save percentage, and a 244 goals against average. It's not bad, but it's nothing to write home about. Then Hutton, good night, Irene. He has one win in 6 games, a 896 save percentage, and a blossoming 3.2 goals against average. Is it the difference? Is poor goaltending, is that what's causing part of their problems? Are they the future or just a stopgap for now? And I think that's the best part of that question from Jeff, who I want to thank for sending it in. Are they a stopgap or are they the future?
First of all, one of the things that the statistics don't give you is the quality of shots a goaltender faces and the amount of second and third chances that the opposition's getting. And I've watched a number of Sabres games, and they are giving up a lot of quality shots and quality second and third chances. Now, getting to your point, is this a stopgap? Carter Hutton at 35 years old, he's not going to be playing in the game too long. As I said earlier, I can see him being used for trade bait. And again, they got to start making up some room to sign some of these younger guys going forward next year. So I see Carter Hutton being moved possibly before the trade deadline for sure. Linus Ullmark, unfortunately, is injured right now. He was actually playing very, very well, very solid, probably the best player on the team. And but he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, and that's going to hurt him. But Carter Hutton's got to play. Now, Ullmark's 27 years old, and he's coming into his own as a number one goaltender. But the future of this franchise for goaltending is Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. Remember that name. That kid was drafted by the Sabres.
Say that again. Say that again.
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
And where is he? Finland?
Yeah, Finland. The Sabres drafted him and brought him over. He played a year of OHL hockey in Sudbury. You could tell by watching him, he is definitely going to be an NHL goalie, and not just a regular NHL goalie. He is going to be a star. He's huge. He's like 6'6". He's quick. He's mobile. He's good handling the puck. I mean, he's got a great glove hand. It's really hard to see some fault in his game right now. I mean, the question for the Sabres is, do you leave him in the minors right now, which they're doing, and let him play in Rochester and play a lot of games? And I think once they move Carter Hutton, they're going to have to bring him up. Then he's going to earn his starts, and he may push Ullmark out the door eventually, but he is going to be the guy. Now, I also like Ullmark. I think he's a quality goaltender too, but they really, really, really need to get, and I go back to what the Leafs did. They've got to upgrade that back end. You've got to help your goaltenders out with better defense, who can box out guys so that, you cut back on the second and third opportunities. They're not making mistakes with the puck, turning it over, not giving up odd man chances, things like that. I mean, one of the Sabres, I know we're talking about goaltending, but it's directly related to the defenseman, is a young guy, William Borgen, got a chance to play with Dahlin when Jake McCabe went down for the season, and he looked great. I mean, he fit in. He's kind of a stay-at-home Jake Muzzin type defenseman. As has been the luck with the Sabres so far this year, he fractured his arm. So he's out of the lineup too. It's just between COVID injuries and kind of ineptitude at the GM level for the past few years on putting him in a really tough position. It's going to be tough sledding. But yeah, going back to goaltending, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. You heard it here.
Yeah, I agree 100%. They need help on the back end. If Ristolainen comes back and is doing well and healthy enough to play, you want him in the lineup. You got Dahlin in the lineup. What do you got after them as far as defense helping?
Well, you've got a young 21-year-old kid named Henry Yakahuru, and I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but that kid has got potential. He's got a lot of potential. Good player. As I said earlier, Brandon Montour's there. He's a solid defensive type defenseman.
Well, you're mentioning guys that are solid defensemen. We know the first two are in Ristolainen and Dahlin. So what's the problem? They're youth. They don't know what they're doing, or they're not that good.
Oh, no. I mean, you look at a Yakahuru. He's 21 years old. I mean, he has to play in the 3-4 spot against basically team second lines. He should be in a 5-6, or at his age, he probably should be in the American League, still developing. They just don't have those seasoned veterans to really help them develop. I mean, and that's the problem.
Their whole defensive core is youth.
Yeah, too much youth. And the veteran guys they have, like a Matt Irwin, is just kind of a journeyman guy, and he's just not what the stability is. Like I say, you look at the quality defenseman they have, and the veteran on that is Ristolainen at 26 years old. That's still pretty young to be kind of your leader of your defensive core.
If Taylor Hall is on the block at the trade deadline, what about Skinner? Is he staying going? Eric Stahl staying going? If they need that much help on defense, you send Taylor Hall, but as you say, he may have a team bonding problem. Jeff Skinner hasn't seen the inside of a net in God knows how long. Eric Stahl and Sam Reinhart, they're steady. I mean, Eric Stahl is a journeyman. He's been there. What do these guys need to do to help? I'm talking to GM, whether it's moving these guys, shaking things up, looking for draft picks. I mean, what do they got to do?
Jeff Skinner isn't going anywhere. I mean, at $9 million a year for the next 6 years, nobody's going to reach out. Although, it's proven he can put the puck in the net. It's not like he's a Casey Middlestat who hasn't proven that he can put the puck in the net on a consistent basis.
Okay, but Skinner did all of his stuff in Carolina.
And his first year in Buffalo. So, yeah, he's proven he can do it in Buffalo.
What did he score his first year?
I get 40 goals his first year in Buffalo. That's why we got that contract.
Shut me right up.
Yeah. I mean, he could play. I think, a guy I like that got from the Islanders a few years back, and he's running the coconut issues, is Kyle Okposo. And he's just never been the same player since he's been injured. He's 32 years old now. He's played only 13 games, and he's got 1 assist to show for it. That's a guy I think they either need to try to move or maybe look at buying out at the end of the year if it has to. Eric Stahl at 36. Is somebody interested in him? Possibly, but for $3.25 million, but at the trade deadline, that's a steal for his leadership and the fact that he's won a cup, the whole bit. One of the guys we haven't talked about who's been on long-term IR and has missed the whole season is Gergensons. And he's a player who has really been a solid second line, third line center winger for that team the last couple of years. He puts the puck in the net and he gets his points, and they really miss him because he's the kind of guy who works hard on the offensive boards, keeps the pucks in, extends offensive time for the team in the offensive zone. So, I mean, a player missing like him is been really, really tough on them for sure.
Who else is having a problem putting the puck in the net?
Well, like I said, Casey Middlestat is a kid who is a former first rounder and is just not doing it. I don't know. He just doesn't seem to be a fit with them. He's got speed galore, but he just can't seem to find whether it's the right line mates or, again, he could be suffering from what I talked about in the opening. He could be just not getting the puck on his stick enough from the defense. It's not getting up to him enough.
Okay, so is it a internal thing? Is it a line mates thing? Is it, when you've been in the locker room and you can see where guys, they just don't gel. It doesn't matter what you do. Yep. It doesn't matter what position you put them in. There's no connection. These three guys that when you put them on the ice, They have to connect. They got to know where the other one's going to be before they get there. And if they're not buying into the plays, if they're not buying into what's going to be said in the locker room, and if there's no connection with his two line mates, is it time for a change of scenery? Is it time to push him up, down in the lineup? What do you see Buffalo having to do with a guy like this to find out what it's going to take to make him work, and if it will?
Well, I mean, he's going to be a restricted free agent at the end of the season, so it's he's going to want probably $4 or $5 million, just like a lot of them do. I don't know if Buffalo has the room for it or can justify it. You got Dylan Cousins, who got injured during the World Juniors, when he showed up in Buffalo, he showed he can play. He's in a limited role. He's already got 3 goals. You got Tag Thompson, big kid, 6'5", a lot of talent, not getting a lot of opportunities to play, but he can skate, he can play. They do have some good youth there. So that's what I'm saying. They've got a lot of work to do upstairs in the general manager's position as far as figuring out who's going to stay, who's going to go. And then the other thing, you wonder is the coach, Ralph Kruger. Is he listening to the players? When a team's not going good or on the line with us, with me and so-and-so, and let's see how it works out. And you'd be surprised because of the perspective the players have on the ice and watching each other, a lot of them know who fits in with their kind of style. And if Ralph Kruger isn't listening to the players, that could be part of the problem too.
Well, that was one thing I wanted to get in before we wrap up our show is coaching. As we discussed in our open, there's been more coaches have gone through here. We're starting with Jack Eichel's tenure, and he's already been through 3 coaches, 3 GMs. Is it the coaches that they're bringing in don't get Jack don't get them? I mean, how can you go through so many guys before you go, okay, somebody's got to stand up and take charge here because it's not working. It's not like Dan Bilesma's never coached. He's got Stanley Cup championship with Pittsburgh Penguins. He's the assistant in Detroit. Yeah, Phil Housley, awesome hockey player. Is he in the Hall of Fame?
Yeah.
So he's a Hall of Famer. You got him behind the bench. I don't know much about Kevin Adams, but these guys are all talented at what they do in some way or another, or they wouldn't be there. What isn't working? Who's not listening? Who isn't understanding? This doesn't make sense when you've got the talent on this team we've talked about. It's not like they got one guy in Jack Eichel. That's all they got.
No.
It's not. That's not the problem.
Nope.
So now you've got to start looking elsewhere as a coach, as a GM, as an owner. I mean, if I'm owning this team, I'm pulling everybody in my office going, okay, boys, what the hell is going on? Fix it, or I find the guys who will.
Well, I mean, Terry Pegula, as we said, has owned the team for 10 years now, and he's gone through 4 GMs and 6 coaches. He inherited Darcy Regier as a GM and Lindy Ruff as a coach when, he bought the team.
How many times has Lindy Ruff been there? He's been a coach in that city at least 3 times.
A couple times anyway, but, he's proven, though, he can teach, he can develop. I mean, look what he's doing. I mean, he's in Jersey now doing it. It has to be looked at from the top because you look at, and you can't forget what happened when Jason Botterill got gassed back in June. I mean, they basically annihilated 22 people in that organization. And I think that went a long way just to bring down the faith a lot of people had who were working that organization. I mean, they went down, something like 14 scouts to 7 scouts or something, crazy numbers like that. And and they've tried some weird stuff over the years. I mean, there was a season when they actually didn't have any scouts on the road. They actually scouted by video and watching TV. And you can't do that. I know you can't do that. It's just virtually impossible to do. But that's what they did. They didn't want to spend the money. Now, Pegula is not shy about spending money. I just don't know how serious he's been taking the Sabres. And it all starts at the top. it all starts at the top, Ed. You know that. I know that. You have to have somebody at the top who's in charge, who has a direction and wants to lead that way. It falls in line down under. Now, you talk about Jack Eichel being frustrated. I can see that. I'm sure a lot of these guys are frustrated. And it is going to be interesting to see how Kevin Adams, the GM, works his way through this, if he indeed can work his way through this. And Ralph Kruger, I mean, he is the fact that he's European. Is there a disconnect between him and a lot of the players? You know, the team is heavily North American. Is there a disconnect? You wonder that. I mean, Ralph Kruger was also a professional soccer coach. I mean, he's got Jack Eichel gave him a glowing endorsement, but you know, what about other guys? What about Jeff Skinner, who, like I said, seems to be in Kruger's doghouse? You know, what are the issues? It's not a fun time to be involved with the Buffalo Sabres. Let's put it that way. They do have some great young talent. It's just how is the coaching, managing, and ownership going to mold and develop that talent, if they're even possible? I mean, it's definitely something that's going to be interesting to watch, and especially as we get closer to the trade deadline to see what moves they make. It definitely looks like they're not going to make the playoffs. They're basically out of it already. But like I said, they got some great players. They got some assets they can move, and they got some great young talent. Do you kind of fold the tent for this year and play for next year? But you still got to put out a good lineup. So it's they're a conundrum, Ed. They're definitely a conundrum.
If there is internal issues, if there is internal problems there, they're doing a damn good job of keeping it behind closed doors. Because other than, you know, rumors and conjecture and all the BS that comes with it, everybody's kind of left to their own devices to find out, does Jack want out? Is he going to demand a trade or is he going to wait until it's his 18 months are up and he can make the decision on his own? Because right now Buffalo has full control of his contract, where he goes, everything, if he goes.
Well,
and I'm sure remember, they don't want it. I'm 100% sure they don't want him gone.
No, but you got to remember too, even though Jack Eichel's no trade movement or whatever comes in play, the Sabres still have to want to trade him. He can't just say, I want to trade. He doesn't have that power. He could, he can be a pain, but I mean, it's still up to them to decide to trade him or not. So he could be wearing the Buffalo sweater for years and years to come. And I'm sure he does want to. I honestly believe he wants to be a Sabre. I watch a lot of the games. I see his body language on the ice. I mean, it's hardly you don't see him floating through any shifts. Taylor Hall, yeah, you can see him floating through shifts. Kyle Okposo, you can see him floating through shifts. Another guy we didn't touch on earlier, too, is Sam Reinhart. Another guy who's actually having a really good year this year. 16 games. He's got 7 goals, 14 points. He's putting it up there. But again, back to what I was saying about Buffalo getting all sorts of power play goals, but no 5-on-5. Out of Reinhart's 7 goals this year, 6 of them are on the power play.
Oh, wow. Well, it's. I think you're right. I think you're 100% correct, Peter. They are a conundrum, and until some changes happen, either on the back end, in the front office, again, that's another thing. The players got to be going. You know, you're getting us a different program every couple of years. We got to learn. You know, we got to start stepping up. I mean, they got to say to a man, to themselves, we're not doing the job. At some point, The players have to play and perform. The old saying is. Players win games, coaches lose games. And right now, that's what's going on because these guys are not being grabbed by the helmet going, you're doing it wrong. If that's what's going on. I don't know. There's nothing coming out of Buffalo. You know, you have connections over there. You've heard nada because their lips are sealed. They don't want to air their dirty laundry. And I get it. That's a good thing. But somebody's got to grab somebody by the throat and go, this is how we're going to do it. Either buy into it or we're going to get rid of you. And sometimes that's what it comes down to. Well, Peter, that's going to about wrap us up for this week at the Buffalo Sabres. We'll just have to be kind of like the rest of the fans, wait and see. Today's show has been brought to you by the Florida Grow House. Have you ever thought of your own greenhouse? Well, here's your chance to get one. Have your own healthy, organic, fresh, and delicious fruits and vegetables in your own backyard. It's fun, it's relaxing, and it's money-saving food in your own backyard. Just go to floridagrowhouse.com or call 772-249-2095. Mention you heard this ad on PuckHeads Insider Report. Get yourself $750 discount. For Peter South in Windsor, Ontario, my name is Ed Combs here in South Florida. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you have, please click like, please click subscribe. Questions, send them off to us, PuckHeads Insider Report on our Facebook page and puckheadsinsider@gmail.com. We look forward to talking hockey again with you next week.